I'm Ryan Drapella, and I'm gonna show you how I turned these $3 Home Depot fence pickets into $1.2 million of revenue on Etsy. We'll be covering what I sold, why it worked on Etsy, how much profit I made in the last 12 months, and the biggest mistake that almost cost me everything. Let's get right into it. So what did I sell to make over $1 million in revenue with just these simple fence pickets? It's simple. I made outdoor coolers. And I only made 2 versions of these outdoor coolers. And so this one on the ground right here is one of the first ones I made. And what this is just your typical outdoor cooler that has a cooler inside of it. And we just built a nice wooden frame around it. That's really it. I'll get more into the process in a little bit, but that's product number 1. Product number 2 is a different type of little outdoor cooler. And we have a little liner that goes into it. And you can pour ice in there and put little drinks and stuff like that. And so we use the outdoor fence pickets to make this little frame, and then we put a liner in it. And why I really liked this product and where it kind of came to mind at, I had this corner of my shop, and if y'all know I have a pretty large industrial shop, but I had this corner in my shop that I didn't have a lot of big power to, and so I was just kind of thinking of like, what can I do to utilize not a lot of power? I didn't want to buy a lot of equipment. And so I was like, well, let's make outdoor coolers and let's use material that is readily available that really anybody can go and get. And so the only tools that I actually used to make all of these things are just a simple miter saw, a simple table saw, and some nail guns. That's really all we used to make all of these things right here. No CNCs, no crazy equipment, all the equipment that you would basically have in your garage. Now, what we did do as we figured out how to make these a little bit faster is make different jigs and systems that can really kind of spit these out. And so a little jig and system that we used for what we call our cedar picnics, we put both of these pieces of wood, so we put them right here, and then you can shoot the nails into them and your glue and all that stuff, and then you do it on all 4 sides. You can take it out, and then you have a nice box, and then you can start kind of processing it further until you get a very simple, lightweight wooden cooler like this. The other kind of jig slash fixture we use to make these larger coolers, and we call these our cedar 48s because we stick a 48 quart cooler in it, and we get the 48 quart cooler from Walmart. Big deal, right? So we get our pickets from Home Depot and our coolers from Walmart. Pretty simple stuff here. And so what we do here is we build a frame and we actually stick all the boards on this. So once we got busy, we started building jigs that we can just rotate, put nails in, and end up building frames kind of like this right here. And then we leave this open right here in the front. And what we do whenever an order comes in, and sometimes we do engrave these, is then this will then go right here. And then imagine that one going right there. That's pretty much what we made and how we made it. It was nothing crazy, something very, very simple that we just produced. And it was simply only these 2 products. And so why did I pick Etsy for these products, and why did they work so well? So the reason I picked Etsy for these products are a couple reasons. One, I think the outdoor furniture niche on Etsy is a really big niche that's untapped. And so I started thinking of different products that can work outdoors. And since I'm a woodworker and want to put all kind of cool finishes on it, it came up and it was like, well, what can we make it out of that we don't have to apply a crazy amount of finish to? And cedar came up. And so we started making them out of cedar. And one thing I really like about these that I didn't understand at the time is that they're kind of bulky. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because as I made these and as I progressed on my Etsy journey and my business journey, what I realized is the bigger the product, a lot of times it's harder for overseas competitors to duplicate and kind of steal your designs. because it does cost a lot of money right here to ship these. And if you're shipping these massive products from overseas, they're gonna have to compete with you on a whole different playing field. And so the size of these actually helped me continue that process on Etsy without having a whole bunch of foreign competition come in. Another thing that we did really well is we took incredible photos of these. And so a lot of other outdoor coolers are on Etsy, but their photos are just really not that good. And I'm not hating them, but what we tried to do is just take really crisp, clean photos. And photos are one of the most important things on Etsy, and that's what I do talk about in CIC Academy and the Etsy Accelerator program that I'll talk about later on. But that's just one of the many different levers you can turn to get a ton of views on Etsy, and so photography is the #1 thing. So we did focus heavily on that. One of the other things we did, like I showed you over here, is we started offering personalization. There's a ton of different ways to get this personalization here. Whether it's a stencil, whether you paint it on, it really doesn't matter. There is a ton of different ways to do this stenciling, but the personalization aspect also helped us a ton on Etsy. And of course, the fact that it is a really good item that is a great gifting item that works good for backyard parties and gatherings and housewarming gifts and closing gifts. And so we kind of tapped into a different market that wasn't just outdoor coolers. It was a bigger gifting market as a whole. And the last thing we did, we just offered faster shipping. And so when I started on this about 3 years ago at that Etsy shop, everybody took about 2 weeks to ship out their product. And so I was like, well, if I can just get it down to less than 5 days to make and ship these out, then we'll win by default because customers can get their stuff faster. Thanks, Amazon. But customers want to get their stuff faster, and so if we can get it to them faster, we will then win if we're comparing apples to apples. So the average cost to ship this item right here was around $75, and that is averaged out across all of the United States. Some are cheaper, some are really expensive. Like I'm in Texas, and if I have to ship to somebody in Maine, for some reason they need a cooler, even though it's already cold up there, it costs over $100 to ship to Maine. So thanks anyone in Maine who's watching that possibly ordered this cooler. Now, these right here cost about 25 bucks to ship, and I do ship them solid like this. Now you may be asking like, well, Ryan, you know, obviously you can't make this cooler in my garage. I don't need a miter saw for it. I just got with a couple local shops and called around and found somebody that can sew this up for me. And so that's how I got the cooler liner made and figured out how to ship it. Was just, I found boxes that fit and shipped them out. So $25 to ship this and around $75 to ship this. Now with all that being said, how much money did I make last year selling these 2 coolers? Let's jump right in. So to check our profits, I'm gonna be using the software called Profit Tree. And as you can see, we're looking at last year's profits right here. And so there's the amount of sales I talked about earlier. And what Profit Tree does, it automatically takes out your cost of goods sold, so how much it costs to make that product, which I put in, and then it takes out all the different Etsy fees that were associated with selling those listings. So I know by using Profit Tree that I brought in $123,289. Now with that being said, this is before we take out shipping costs because I do not ship on Etsy. And so as you can see, we did have a 44% profit margin before shipping, which is pretty good. Now, I assure you shipping is not going to be nowhere near close to $123,000. So this Etsy shop was profitable. So if you want to keep track of your data and see how much money you're actually making, definitely check out Profit Tree. Link is in the description. It is amazing, and I use it for all of my Etsy shops. So what was the biggest mistake and the biggest lesson learned from this whole entire process? First of all, I think for you, a good takeaway is that, once again, you don't need a lot of stuff, and you can just go to Home Depot and Walmart, and like I said, get this Walmart cooler, get this bottle opener from Amazon, get this hardware from Ace Hardware, right? Like, you don't have to think too crazy, right? And that was the initial reason for getting into it. But where I went wrong was, and I think a lot of woodworkers have this mentality, and this is where we do screw up, and I'm still doing this on a, not necessarily a daily basis, but at least once a month, is that I price my products so I stay busy, but not so I make money. And so what I did when I came out with these, I wanted so bad to sell these coolers. I wanted it so bad that I was so tight on my numbers that I was making these and I wasn't actually making that much money, but I was busy. Last year we had to decline orders because we were so busy making these coolers, and that's why we dropped a little bit compared to the previous year, because we were just too busy to keep up. But the issue was, and once again, I do this and I know a ton of woodworkers who do this, we price our products to stay busy, not to make a ton of money. And that is so hard for us to wrap our head around because we want it to work, right? Like, we want to make nice things like this that last a long time, that really do work, that people enjoy, and we just want to give that to the world because we're passionate about it and we love it. But the problem with that is if you don't price your products high enough, you end up going around. You ever seen those hamsters on the hamster wheel, right? They just keep chasing, and you know, the carrot on the stick with the donkey, right? Keeps chasing it and never actually gets the carrot. That's what happens. And so what happens is you find yourself working your butt off, staying here, working 12, 16-hour days, making all these things, and then as soon as a blade goes bad on a miter saw and you have to go buy a new one, you don't have money to replace it because you never price your products high enough. So if I can change one single thing, whenever I started this, I would go back and probably increase my prices 10 to 20%. Simply put, I would increase them 10 to 20%. At this point, I have increased them multiple times because I didn't understand how much it actually cost to ship them. Once again, $75 is a lot, and I wasn't factoring in some of the Etsy fees that were in there, and I wasn't factoring in that it did cost $25 to ship this and the cost of the box. And so I was still making money, but it was never enough to do what I wanted to do and feel good about it at the end of the day, that like, hey, I did a hard day's work and I earned a really honest wage by making something people wanted. What it felt like was I was making all this stuff, running around in that hamster wheel, and at the end of the day, I looked and I still didn't get the damn carrot that's on the end of that stick, right? And that's a horrible feeling. And I think most woodworkers get trapped in that. And if you are there and you feel like you've been doing everything for everybody, I know how that feels. And so you just want to make sure you always charge enough. And if it doesn't sell, you know what? Just walk away. Like, it's okay. It's okay, right? If you can never grab the carrot, then you don't want that damn carrot anyways that's on the end of the stick. If you can't get that carrot and you can never get it because you never price your stuff and that's the only way you can sell it, then you probably shouldn't make that and find something else. I mean, I know these coolers will sell at a higher price, and I will go up on the price. And I have multiple times, but I just haven't found that limit yet. And even while I'm making this video, I should probably go up on it a little bit more. So just don't make the same mistake that I did when looking at your products, looking at your woodworking journey. And if you do want to learn more about Etsy and how to make money on there and how I've grown 2 Etsy shops to over $9.5 million in sales, I'd like for you to check out CIC Academy and the Etsy Accelerator program, where I walk step by step to how I've grown 2 Etsy shops to well over $1 million in sales. And one of them is this one, and one of them is my wood products that this whole shop was built around. So if you're interested in the Etsy Accelerator program, check the link out in the description. I hope you left this video with more knowledge than when you started. And as always, guys, remember, if you ain't cutting it close, you ain't cutting it right.